Welcome, everyone, to another Life Up Front podcast. I'm Jeff Waters, your host, and today we have Dale Kipp, who is the director and one of the founders of MatWeb, an online organization devoted to material properties for the engineering profession. Hi, Dale.
Hi, Jeff. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing well. I appreciate you coming and sharing a little bit of information about your company here today.
Well, I certainly welcome the chance to tell you and your listeners about us. I think there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes at MatWeb that your audience would be interested in finding out, and maybe some of the things that MatWeb is capable of that they don't know about. They can learn more that way too.
Great. Well, I mean, let's start at the beginning. What is MatWeb, and how did it come about?
Well, MatWeb is the leading engineering materials database on the website, or even expanding beyond that, the leading materials information resource. We get about 23,000 people a day using the website. That's oriented very heavily towards the engineering and design community. That's really the core of our users. Probably 65-70% would fall into that category. We have the rest of that. It consists of people in the education arena, basically from an advanced undergraduate up through graduate school, would be the sort of people who use MatWeb. Then there's people who are fabricators, people who are hobbyists who have an interest in a very specific type of material. They may be building remote control airplanes or battling robots and need to know about engineering materials without really making it their profession. MatWeb was founded in 1996. Myself and the other founders were working in a little R&D firm, and we were doing some very demanding research, demanding from a materials perspective. We were doing high-temperature brazing and welding. We were doing corrosion studies, and we needed access to materials data for both the components of our products and some of the fixturing that would be required to create those products. And our company was small. We didn't have a lot of internal resources. In fact, a lot of companies worldwide probably didn't have a lot of computational resources in-house to help with materials information and selection. We found that we were making many trips to a research engineering university library about 20 miles away. We spent a lot of time waiting for literature and faxes to come from manufacturers, and that led to a lot of delays in our research. And back in 1996, the internet was just starting to get a foothold in the popular consciousness, but we foresaw that it would become a lot bigger thing than it was in 1996 because of the growth in network capabilities and the growth in computing and database power that would enable a site like MatWeb to be run economically.
So back then, people were often going to the library or, as you mentioned, using a fax machine. So manufacturers, material suppliers would actually just fax you information, and you'd have to, get the fax out, see how grainy it is, and then try to understand exactly what the material properties are.
Yeah, it sounds like a long time ago now, doesn't it?
It sure does. Well, I think back to certainly when I was a kid, when you talk about materials, there was a certain cool factor with things like titanium and carbon fiber. And I don't want to say those are blasé, but it just doesn't seem to carry the same cachet these days. What would you say is kind of the hot new material that people are talking about, or maybe the area of materials?
Well, I'll mention two areas that people are talking about a lot, and I don't know if they're cool for different reasons. One is nanomaterials and just the increase of nanotechnology overall. There's a lot of cool things that happen on a materials level when you get down to the micron or nanometer level that don't happen on macroscopic materials. And cutting-edge researchers are taking advantage of that in the laboratory, and things are finding their way out of the laboratory now in terms of coatings and additives, and we've really just scratched the surface on that right now, I think, and it's going to be something we'll hear a lot about for the next generations. And the other thing that has a lot of buzz now is green materials, and that can cover a wide range of definitions, and some of it's just based on marketing hype at the moment and pressure from people who don't necessarily have a scientific or technical view, but just want to feel good about the products they use. And they rely on scientists and people with a technical view to be able to make sustainable materials or materials that reduce waste, anything like that. It's a very nebulous definition right now. I think that materials that could be considered green in some contexts is how they perform rather than the materials themselves. The latest generation of aircraft, for example, are being made out of carbon fiber rather than aluminum. And that's because carbon fiber enables tremendous cost savings through weight savings. And weight savings in aircraft is everything when it comes to being green because you save massive amounts of fuel that way. Even if there is a little bit bigger initial investment in the materials up front, you save that over time. And that's true for many, many things beyond just aircraft, but that's probably the most visible one that people can picture.
Yeah, that's a really good point. There's certainly a compelling argument coming from the consumer side that's driving a lot of companies towards greener products and materials, that they'd be willing to spend even a little more money just to get that market share for better materials, where in the past it was always cheapest, lightest.
Yeah, I'll give another example. This is not materials per se, but it's an example that's very consumer driven, and it's the sort of consumer decisions that people make every day, and that deals with what they put in their laundry detergent. Now, there's companies that specialize in renewably sourced detergents. There's, of course, a lot of history in petrochemicals that need to be matched in terms of performance. But another way of looking at green materials is can you get something that cleans in cold water as well as it does in warm or hot? And you get tremendous energy savings from not having to heat hot water for laundry. If you can picture just a container of liquid laundry detergent at the grocery store, it takes a lot of energy to transport that from where it's manufactured to the store. And if you can concentrate it more and more, the fraction of active ingredients in a laundry detergent bottle is really small compared to the overall liquid. It's mostly just water. And if you can reduce the water 50% or 75% and still keep the active ingredients in there and separated during the transportation process, you save a lot in packaging, you save a lot in transportation.
Wow, that's really interesting. So, the implications of materials and the products that you're making go well beyond just the product itself.
Yes. So, materials research is certainly nowhere near stale. If carbon fiber and titanium aren't cool anymore, there's certainly other things that are.
Okay. Well, I've been watching MatWeb for a long time. Back when I was a real engineer, I actually used it quite a bit, probably in the early days, soon after it came around. Today, I'm most aware of it because the product that my company sells, SpaceClaim, is a 3D modeling tool, integrates directly with MatWeb. And MatWeb does integrate with other tools out there, but what other kinds of systems can access MatWeb? And how do you go about deciding how you're going to integrate with other companies?
Can I mention your competitors here?
Absolutely. Sure.
All right. Well, at the moment, we have interactivity between MatWeb and a total of 8 FEA, CAD, or modeling type companies, including SolidWorks, Algor, Ansys, ComSol, SpaceClaim. These companies sometimes have come to us, sometimes we reach out to them. Of those that I mentioned, SolidWorks has probably the biggest footprint in the marketplace, and they were the first ones that we worked at from an integration standpoint. And there's others in the works. I probably shouldn't mention them right now, but if you can picture a big modeling software company that you haven't heard me mention, we're probably working with them.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
The rationale for using MatWeb with some of these modeling software is that you can get the exact material that you need to be included in your design computations. SolidWorks and the others may come with a default library of 50 or 100 materials, but that may not include the exact material that you need. So by working with MatWeb as one of our premium members with a few clicks of your mouse, you can create a small file to be exported into your design software, and you have the exact materials that you need with all of the properties that we have included in the right format, in the appropriate units, without any retyping. So saves time, it saves any possible error introductions during retyping of information.
And about how many material properties do you currently carry, and how many are you adding per year?
Material properties. Well, we track over 1,000 unique properties. We get up to 1,000 because we have some very specific properties that apply to only small segments of the materials industry. We have certain piezoelectric properties that only apply to a few dozen materials in our database, or maybe they could potentially apply to a lot wider section, but they're only measured on a few dozen because that's all people care about. We have specific film properties. We have specific lubricant properties. We have optical properties, magnetic properties. We have atomic properties that only apply to pure elements. And so we try and we add them on an as-needed basis. Sometimes we split up existing properties to get a more discrete property to help people search and apply what they have. One example, we used to have coefficient of friction, but now we have that broken out into both static and dynamic because those are two different numbers that are applied in two completely different sets of circumstances.
Well, that's great info and deeper than what I was actually asking, but I think it's important for people to know that too. No, what I meant was about how many materials do you currently have in your library, and how often do you add more?
Okay. We have about 76,000 materials in our database right now. We added 9,000 new ones over the course of the last year. That reflects mostly new additions from manufacturers in response to their own product developments, but we're also expanding our reach to include more manufacturers and more types of raw materials. And we add those on an almost daily basis. Hand in hand with the addition is we also remove outdated information. Sometimes we remove it entirely. Sometimes we leave it in the database, label it as a discontinued product so that people for historical information can still go back and find what they were using. It helps them find a replacement for a discontinued product that way. Great.
Well, I think one of the appealing things to most engineers about MatWeb, besides the great number of materials that you cover, is that it's totally free for the end user. Is that correct? And if so, do users have a premium model that they can subscribe to, or just how does this website make money?
Okay. Well, MatWeb was designed from the perspective of the engineer. When we founded MatWeb, we wanted a website that we would like to use. And when we add information, when we add tools, we try and keep the end user in mind almost more so than the business aspects of the website. MatWeb is about 70% supported by advertising right now. We do have 2 levels of registration. There is a free level of registration, which gives people some search and compare capabilities, the ability to use our advanced search, some additional tools like a moment of inertial calculator that are unavailable to anonymous users. And we also do have a premium paid subscription. That's the $99 a year model, and that's what is required to work with most of the FEA software exports.
Well, I have to say that sounds pretty reasonable compared to the amount of time I used to spend with my old HP calculator doing unit conversions from a book.
Yeah, we think it is a great time saver, and that's what has really helped our adoption in the marketplace among the people who use that. And engineers' time is very valuable, and if we can save them a few hours a year, it's well worth it.
Absolutely. Well, Dale, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to me and my readers today. And if people would like to find out more about MatWeb, explore some of the capabilities, it's simply www.matweb.com, correct?
That's correct. MatWeb. Well, Jeff, thanks again for the opportunity to talk to your audience a little bit about MatWeb. I encourage the people who are unfamiliar with us to come to the website and check us out. And those of us who are already loyal users of MatWeb, keep using us, watch us grow. We think we've just scratched the surface with what we can do. And it's been a very fun company to work for, very rewarding to see the benefits of our efforts being used so immediately by the engineering materials community.
And again, that's matweb.com, www.matweb.com. Music today is from the song Cortez and Pizarro, licensed from the band Slim, found at slimrocks.com. This podcast is brought to you by lifeupfront.com.
Now the thing that brought this on for me was my cool earring and my new goatee. The mirror shows a 16th century caballero. So I thought I'd get some armor and grab my steed and ride down across the border and over the seas and apologize for my top knot battle.